Hello everyone and welcome back to your weekly PlayStation podcast right here on Helix Cloud Games for episode number 14 of Talking the PS. We have a fantastic show lined up for you this week talking about all of the state of play breakdown news, some big game reveals, lots of content regarding PSVR, both good and bad, some games going free to play and much, much more. But before we do get into all that, don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe and hit that bell so you are kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here at Helix Cloud Games, just like our live streams, our first plays, our first looks and everything else. I'm joined once again by the amazing panel of co-hosts. The man of many pixels returns, Mr. Richie. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Were you here last week or not?
Yes.
I can't remember now. You were here for last week.
I only missed one episode.
I know, it's just so... Everything's just merged into one now. And returning once again, our chaotic neutral, Rob.
Hello.
Rob,
I was here last week
you were
as
here
well.
this week. It's a bit of a weird one, I think, in the UK because of all the... Because we've got a bank holiday yesterday at the time the show goes live. Everything just kind of seems a bit off kilter. We're recording a bit later than usual as well, so I think I'm usually at this point on a Sunday evening, we're done with everything already, and it's pretty much in the bag, scheduled, ready to go. But here we are. Plenty of PlayStation news though. We obviously had our state of play last week. Richie, we were going to do a watch along for it, and then I got tracked back late from work, and it was at 11 p.m, so it was a late one anyway. And yeah, I got stuck in traffic in Yorkshire somewhere in country roads in the middle of the night. And it was like, I rang Richie and just said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be back. I ended up getting back, annoyingly enough, 10 minutes after the state of play kicked off. So it was like,
we could have probably done it just like slightly delayed, but you don't know what the timeline's going to be like.
Exactly. But of course, we are going to break down the whole state of play in this very announcement. Big shout out to all of our viewers and listeners out there who are tuning in every week for the show. And a massive, massive shout out to, of course, our wonderful Helix Heroes out there, the fantastic folks who support us that extra little bit further. We should probably shout out, before we get into it, Richie, we did our live stream this Thursday, as we usually do every Thursday here on the channel, playing games with a wonderful community out there. And I think the biggest thing for us is we had, I think, 10 new members, Richie, if I'm not mistaken, join us on our Helix Hero membership program.
I think in total it might have been 12, because one of our new members actually just gifted 10 memberships.
Yeah. It was absolutely amazing, absolutely heartwarming. But I think special shout out to Smock Junior Gaming, I think initially who donated the gifted memberships. Alexander Gilbster, Ansel Brahim, Krinagar Games, Lars Rise, Jepson, Zigbone88, Jinxage Gaming, Derek, our good long-standing friend, Marcos, Garcia Feliz, Humble, rejoining back in as well. But yeah, 10 people. We just got kind of hit with a insane lot of memberships suddenly joined us, and it was very overwhelming. So thank you to one and all. Of course, you guys basically support us and help us bring you better quality content from your memberships and being a Helix Hero. And because of that, you get this show early, you get the show a few days early, you get CloudQuest a few days early. Lots of people kicking off with the stickers and badges in the chat, Richie, suddenly realising that they have special access to our hype emojis and our stickers and stuff. So that was great to see, very great. And more importantly, we had a great time playing the crew too. Which surprises both of us, I think. It caught us both off guard.
Yeah, it's one of them games that I just never really give much of the time of the day. And because we have our Ubisoft Plus subscription, we're kind of going, oh, what Ubisoft game do you want to play this week? And there's a flick through, oh, we haven't played Crew 2, let's play that. That was pretty much the ultimate decision. I was like... And it was really fun. It
was really fun. We saw loads of new faces. So it's the reason we play different games. And of course, let us know in the comments down below if you'd like to play any new games going forward. Let us know in the Discord as well. The link's in the description below. And of course, all those type of games we'll no doubt be playing as part of our Helix Cloud Celebration 2022, which is happening this coming Saturday, the 1st of October. Full day of games, fun, and giveaways as well. We'll get more information out about that one, but we do hope you'll join us as we celebrate our 3rd year anniversary, which is crazy. 3 years of content here on the channel. But, as I said, we've got a great show lined up. We're going to be digging into all the PlayStation news, and boy, there is a lot of it. So, without further delay, let's get into the chunk of it. Rob, if you could do us the honours of introducing us to the...
Properly prepared PlayStation Perusing Points, a.k.a.
The
News.
The News.
Busy state of play, of course, following on the back of Nintendo Direct happened earlier in the day. We got some kind of news about some upcoming titles and games. We won't break it down in chronological order. We won't include every game because there was some kind of little filler titles and ones that we'll probably hear more about as we get closer to release date. But there was some big hitters in there. So kicking things off, first of all, they made the official announcement of Tekken 8, which we knew about. It was unveiled as part of the State of Play, which I don't think any of us are really big Tekken fans. However, the one thing I've seen from this one, which seems very, very different, is it has this kind of like mini open world. I don't know if you've seen it, but you can essentially walk around and then take part in the... So it's not just kind of like start the fight, go, pick your character. There seems to be a bit more contextual story to this game, like taking it in a slightly different direction than we've seen with traditional Tekken games. Either of you two really dabble in the franchise? In
I
history,
have a soft spot for it. Like I think I first got into it with Tekken 2, where I think it was Paul still had his like kind of tree trunk hairstyle.
Right. Oh yeah,
because it couldn't render any like kind of textures or anything like that. But the open world element of this actually reminds me of do you like the old like WWE games where you can walk around backstage and stuff before you go to your match? It kind of reminds me a bit like that. But yeah, like Tekken's been a soft spot for me since it was the first kind of beat 'em up I ever played.
Yeah, I remember playing them.
Genre's a bit
back in the day.
You know, yeah, because like I think you got Tekken 3 bundled with like every PlayStation. I can't remember what console it was now for Tekken 3.
I definitely had one Tekken game on my PS2.
Yeah, it'll probably be 3 because it got bundled a lot.
It was just one of them games. I had it. I enjoyed playing it a bit. Occasionally, like you play with your brother or someone, just like you play a few rounds and then that's it. I was never good at it, and it's probably why I've never really been that bothered about fighting games. Just early on, they just never fully gripped me.
Yeah.
See, this could be a thing. So, Chris, you have
them from a distance.
So you're the older brother in your
yes
kind of dynamic. Richie, you're the younger brother.
Yes.
Do you think there's like an influence there where it's like if you're getting like continuously stomped by your older brother in a game, like you automatically get put off that kind of genre in childhood?
Quite possibly.
I don't recall ever getting stomped by my brother. I think it was usually
he's blocked it out is what he means.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I just don't think either of us were typically into like fighting games, so it was never like one of us would sit there for hours and hours and hours playing this one game. So when we did play against each other, there was a clear difference. Like neither of us knew the buttons.
Yeah, it was definitely easy. I think back like the original Mortal Kombat and stuff when it was like Mega Drive and it was 3 buttons, so you didn't have that much to mash. But I know Richie, you're quite a big fan of like Super Smash Bros.
Yeah,
like, I can like it's just something to do with the combinations, and like I'm sure if I actually committed to learning it, I'd be great. But things like Injustice as well, when I see those come out, and I think, oh, they look so good and fun, but they're just not for my brain capacity anymore.
Even me with Smash, despite the roster being absolutely huge, there's only a small section of characters I actually know how to play. Like the controls to Smash are like fairly simple. You basically got an attack and a special attack button, and then there's directions beyond that. But understanding all the different movesets of all the different characters, like I just don't.
Yeah, it's like back in the arcade. You just kind of like used to aim the joystick in the direction and hit one of the A or B buttons and just hold. One was block and one was attack, and you try and figure it out. But it was I'm just there for the finishes really in all these type of games. The KO, Soul Calibur. I enjoyed Soul Calibur back in the day as well. Of course, Tekken just passed lifetime sales of 53 million copies, so it's a big hitter of a game. If I'm not mistaken, Tekken 7 was exclusive to PlayStation as well, so it's this time round still on PlayStation. It seems to be there's that partnership there, that it's the one you'll see at Evo events and fighting ones as well. But Tekken 8 announced. Interesting to see where they take this new start. Game looks gorgeous, all rendered in engine, the stuff they showed off. And we'll hear more on Tekken 8 as it comes around. They then moved on to some PSVR stuff. They showcased a little bit of Star Wars from Galaxy's Edge Enhanced Edition, which the game is already out. I think it's on Quest or Oculus Quest. That's out now. It's basically just a small story set in the Star Wars world, taking place in the world that you can actually visit in the theme parks in Batuu. So interesting little kind of tie in there. Some indie games. Demio was shown off, and then Hogwarts Legacy was shown off for like the 50 millionth time. I don't want or really need to see any more of this game, but I will say, every time we see more of Hogwarts Legacy, it looks like a different game. We've seen stuff with the wizards. We've seen some kind of big cinematic pieces. There's the stuff with the potions class. You know what I mean? There's like a connective tissue in all these trailers that I've not seen yet. What do you actually do in this game?
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Is like, although we've seen tons of it, I don't think we've seen like any sort of like what are the core combat mechanics looking like? Is there even core combat mechanics?
There's just the
I just want to see somebody walking around a bit. Really, that's what I'm, like. Just the 10-minute kind of walk around preview would be nice. I think.
Yeah, just so we can get like a good eye. Obviously, they've still got a few months to go. Now they've delayed it back to 2023, but they've shown off kind of loads of locations. We know there's obviously the spells and the customization part, and it takes place well before Harry Potter. But yeah, I'm waiting for that like kind of gameplay reveal of this is what you're actually. This is why you will be spending hours and hours beyond just it being a Harry Potter tie-in. Like I want to enjoy it as a game.
Really. We've only got one more shot to show us that, and that's probably Game Awards.
Game Awards, yeah, it's going to be loads there. So we'll see, but we won't rest on that one for too long because, like I said, it's coming. The big kind of thing from the showcase was a couple of things from me. There was loads of Yakuza / Like a Dragon stuff, but before we kind of get into the big announcements of that one, there was a similar one in the form of Rise of the Ronin, and this was the one for me, similar to when we watched the what was the thing we reacted to? Jeff Keighley's Opening Night Live. This was the one that stood out for me of like,
Where the Winds Meet.
Yeah, Where the Winds Meet. It was kind of obviously very similar thematically and stuff, but when they showed off this one, that's what made me stand up and go, okay, Rise of the Ronin. Looked, again, Richie, you just finished Ghost of Tsushima, you're sitting on a Platinum now, set in the 1836 Japan, RPG, except for this one seems to lean a little bit more into the fantasy a little bit. The description says, Rise of the Ronin is a new Team Ninja experience, that's the development studio, experience that will immerse you in a historically inspired world while bringing together its renowned combat action with katanas and the likes of new firearm weaponry that depicts unique personality of the time period. By harnessing all the skills and knowledge you'll gain over the years, we really wanted to take things to the next level by attempting to thoroughly portray the most critical revolution in the history of Japan, including the darkest and ugliest chapters that many will shy away from. This is undoubtedly the most ambitious and challenging project for Team Ninja's studio to date, yet will allow our experience in creating samurai and ninja action games to guide us through the journey. So, the game just looks gorgeous for one, but I don't know whether we're just in this big phase of like Japanese influence that like I'm all in for it.
Yeah, well, Where the Winds Meet is set in China rather than Japan, but yeah, I'm all in for this. It looks like it might be set like kind of at the end of the samurai periods of Japan, you know, like where have you seen Last Samurai?
Yeah.
Like that era, like where the samurai have been phased out and like
there's the
it's during the Civil War, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, like
there's a clip in the trailer where there's a very like American colony with with a US flag.
That's what's made me think. Is it in that kind of era where like you're starting to get like the more Western influence in Japan? Is Japan modernized and going with the West? But then you've got the kind of traditionalists. Like with the samurai and stuff, kind of still opposed to it, and that can be the course of the conflict. And a Ronin is it's a warrior without a master, so it's like a samurai who doesn't serve like any particular order or anything. Yeah, effectively. So
it's
set in 1863.
Yeah,
as Civil War rages and Western influences permeate the country. So
it sounds like there's going to be like some guns involved as well, but it's like it's not classic samurai, but there is going to be that kind of polarizing nature of guns and swords mushed together and Western and Eastern influence mushed together, and like again visually it looks cool. Like these are the guys, Team Ninja, they're the ones who do they did Marvel Ultimate Alliance, they do the Dead or Alive series, they've done a couple of the Fire Emblem Warriors, Hyrule Warriors video games for the Switch as well. They're also currently working on the Wolong Fallen Dynasty game, so again they're leaning heavily into the kind of local culture as well. And just something about it. Like I think the name's cool. I think the game looks awesome, and I'm ready for that kind of Ghost of Tsushima hit. We know we're probably a few years out from the sequel to that. We know Assassin's Creed Red is probably a good 2 or 3 years out as well. So this is probably a good stopgap that's in there, and I like what I see. So I'm going to keep an eye on Rise of the Ronin. Any of the smaller titles that were pulled out for you guys from the state of play before we get into the bigger ones?
Stellar Blade looked decent. Previously it was Project Eve. Like it looks like just a straight up action game. Yeah.
Right. See, and sudden name change, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell this is. But as soon as you said Project Eve, I'm like, I have seen this before.
They did the name change in the trailer.
Yeah. When I got in from work, it was like trying to watch it while getting in, and I had it on the background, but I wasn't watching it.
There was another one I can't remember the name of. Sinduality looks like kind of like you're playing as a mech in like mech suits and stuff. I worry about some of these games though. Some of them, that especially those like slated for 2023, with how stacked next year's looking. Are these just gonna fall into the mix where like the great games that I'm not going to play because I'm playing other stuff already?
Yeah, I think a few of them will probably be pushed back realistically. Like most announcements I now will not come out next year.
I hope they are. I actually genuinely hope they are, so I have time to play them.
Yeah, absolutely indeed. So moving on then to the kind of big bulk. Now, not all of these games were announced at the showcase, but we're going to cluster them together because it makes sense. And that is the Yakuza franchise, or the not known as the Yakuza franchise any longer because they've actually decided to rename or rebrand, I guess, the Yakuza games to Like a Dragon. So the Yakuza franchise now will be known going forward as Like a Dragon, which is what they're called in Japan, we should point out. So over in Japan, the series is already known as Like a Dragon. It's only in the West that they started titling them Yakuza. I'm sure there's obviously other reasons they want to get rid of the Yakuza name. It's like negative connotations to like Japanese mafia kind of thing. So
yeah, I was going to say it's mafia.
Yeah, it's just a bit simplistic as
and
well.
Mafia
isn't it?
doesn't come to Stadia.
Yeah, it's like, a Japanase title about crime. It's like, call it Yakuza. It seems a bit kind of...
Yeah, on the nose, isn't it, with it? Especially for the West. Of like, those stupid people over there will only know it as this. So it's kind of a clever move. Again, for a franchise to suddenly drop its well-known name as it's getting really big is obviously a risk to some degree. Like, are people going to understand it? But I think in the world we live in now, consumers are so savvy. I don't think it's going to impact it as much as it may have done like 10, 15 years ago. But at the same time, the franchise as a whole is seeing such a kind of a swell in success and notoriety. It's probably the best time to do it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like it can become maybe a franchise that isn't so beholden to its kind of roots. It can have like a couple of different identities with this kind of move, and like each kind of individual, I guess, like series title, like a Dragon, can have like its own kind of identity and stuff like that. So I think maybe they're planning for the future and planning for a bit of experimentation, which I'm all for. Yeah, again, like it's a franchise I've been involved in for all of 2 months.
That's what you're trying to get out of us saying you're our residential Yakuza.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because then there's the pressure. Then there's the pressure to play about 6 or 7 games like in the next month, right?
That's true. Yeah, you need to keep us up to date. You won't have. You'll have a little bit of time. So one of the first big announcement was Like a Dragon 8, which would have been so many people, and I myself is probably still going to call it Yakuza 8 for so long. But yeah, Like a Dragon 8, which is the sequel, the follow-up from Yakuza Like a Dragon 7. Just to keep that straight, Like a Dragon 8 has been officially announced it was at the RGG Summit, this one, but because of one of the announcements from the State of Play, we're just going to fold all the stories into one. They showed a short trailer revealing the Like a Dragon protagonist, Ichiban Kasuga. Is that right, Rob?
Maybe I play with subtitles.
And a series poster by Kiryu Yakazuma standing. Basically, that's all they showed off. They kind of showed like a Japanese street. And within that, it's just a brief glimpse. I'm guessing the game's quite a little while off. The combat is going to use the RPG system that was introduced in Like a Dragon. So again, let's talk about the series differentiating itself. They pivoted massively from the older Yakuza games to a more turn-based one. And I know some of the audience were a bit annoyed by that. So the announcements we're going to get onto in a second are kind of going to feed both parties almost with what they want. With this particular one, both protagonists are reportedly getting their own party, whatever that means. And according to it, it's going to be Yakuza hijinks and all the same favourite stuff you're used to seeing. So, interesting that they say Yakuza hijinks, even though they're not trying to call it Yakuza.
Yeah, from what I understand of the Yakuza series, I've played about a grand total of about 2 hours of Like a Dragon is. What's his name? Kiryu is like the original protagonist of the Yakuza franchise. And they were more action focused, where Like a Dragon was always a spin-off featuring Ichiban, and they had a more turn-based RPG thing. So you'd have a party of characters, similar like you would in any sort of RPG, Final Fantasy, where you cast the characters out on the battlefield, taking turns, that sort of thing. And it seems like this move with like the merge, it's kind of merging the two like story arcs together, because they're playing as dual protagonists, but it looks like But I think with how successful Like a Dragon was, that they're going, okay, we're going to take the gameplay from Like a Dragon, but make this now mainline stuff, but bring in this element of the older stuff.
Yeah, well, this is where the deviating. So the other one they announced was Like a Dragon Ishin, which is a remake of an older game that it didn't get a Western release, but it was originally a Yakuza spin-off game. Like a Dragon Ishin was what it was called in Japan. So this is where the naming convention gets very weird, because when you say Like a Dragon, my brain thinks it's the newer ones, but this is essentially to the West it would have been called Yakuza Ishin, but because it was a Japanese release only, it was called Like a Dragon Ishin. But this game has been out before. It's been rebuilt up from the ground up, so it's not a kind of remaster or anything. And this one originally came out on PS3 and PS4 under the name Ryu Gotoku Ishin back in 2014. So this one is transplanting the chaotic Yakuza format into the late Edo period for a historical slice of samurai action. So it looks like this one takes place a good chunk of time before the current one you deal with in the existing franchise. Follows a different protagonist as he returns to his home, where after a run-in with a high-ranking samurai, he's sentenced to be executed. Apparently, crisis gets averted, and he finds himself on a quest through the 1860s, so actually brushing up very close with Rise of the Ronin, which we just spoke about as well. Serves as another distinctive slice of story, action, and mini-games that should be familiar to Yakuza fans, even if the setting isn't. Sega hasn't offered any much in the way of details regarding what changes are coming to the remake, other than it's part of the ground up. Presumably, they're going to have more to share before it's released in February next year, so it's not even that far out. So yeah, again, differentiating into a different time zone, but keeping with the more classical kind of fight mechanics, but then it's already out, so I guess it's kind of got a proven track record that it's good enough to merit a remaster, remake, whatever.
The barrier to entry to this franchise is high. I'm not gonna lie, it's like
it seems to be.
I think Like a Dragon was a good entry point because it was kind of a standalone thing, like Yakuza Like a Dragon, not just Like a Dragon. We're going to use the English names for clarity.
Yeah.
So I think that was meant to be a good jumping in point. If you haven't played a Yakuza game before, you could jump in. But then you got Kiwami was a remake, but then there's Yakuza 0, which is a prequel, and this one seems to be completely separate. And I wonder if they're remaking this because they want to expand the franchise, and by doing a remake, that could almost set up for A2 and Ishin 2.
Yeah. So
going forward.
Before we get into
I feel like I need a map for this.
Yeah, I definitely need some kind of timeline of things. Before we get into that, the third game that was announced, I'm sure there's people watching along who were like die-hard Yakuza, like Dragon fans.
There's Lost Judgment in there as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was like, so what's Judgment and what's Lost Judgment? Like, where do they fit into this? But we won't get into that one. The third game they did announce was Like a Dragon Gaiden, which is slightly different. Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, which is a Yakuza spin-off for Kiryu. So if you're a Yakuza fan, you're being well fed this coming year or so, because it's just all over the place, Like a Dragon material. So The Man Who Erased His Name will follow the story of former gangster Kiryu Kazuma from the events of Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, up until Like a Dragon 8. The trailer was released showing him being disciplined at a monastery, having seemingly renounced all his former life, before it's revealed that Kiryu is in fact still involved with the same family, the Mafia family from Yakuza 6. Gaiden will be a smaller scale game than the main entries in this Yakuza series. It will return to the action-adventure brawling gameplay of earlier games rather than the RPG combat of Like a Dragon. Gaiden is currently set for 2023 release on PlayStation, PC and Xbox. So this is what I said about fans being fed on all fronts. You're getting your classics, you're getting remakes, you're getting games that weren't released, you're getting new games in the action RPG element, you're getting games in just the RPG element, and it's kind of like, if this was a franchise that I was in love with already, like if this was Uncharted or The Last of Us or something, or Bioshock, I'd be like, oh boy, give it to me. Yeah. But from an outsider looking in, it's like, whoa, okay.
What helps in this is Gaiden can be translated to side story from Japanese to English. So there is stuff in the naming convention if you know what you're looking for. So okay, this is a side story, it's a smaller thing. It's probably similar to Mirage, as what Mirage is to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. where this is a smaller thing focused on like a bit tighter narrative.
Yeah.
But again, they're like, as someone who has never played a Yakuza game more than for a few hours, it does seem a little overwhelming if you were looking to get into the franchise now.
It's weird because it does, but at the same time, there's so much of it. I kind of feel like I'm missing out by not being involved in it.
Yeah.
So that almost has that weird allure where I do want to jump in just to see what it's all about, because it's getting that many games. I'm thinking, well, it must be good if they're getting so many.
But it feels like when you see a
think.
TV show where it's like it's got like 10 seasons and you're like, oh, 24 episodes. No, it's too much. I just need to like.
But then it gets loads of awards.
But there again, that would
still.
be. It wouldn't be just like a TV series. It'd be like jumping into the MCU, because there's different branching arcs, and where do you start? Like, I suppose in the MCU you start with Iron Man, and I suppose with this, I think you've probably, as far as I can tell, Ishin is completely separate. So let's put that aside. I think I can see two probably reasonable jumping on points, like Yakuza Kiwami, like the remake of the first game, or Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
Which is because that was kind of standalone. But you probably need to do both if you really want to get into the newest
it's
stuff. It's
also an interesting thing with video games, like with a movie. We're saying there with comparing it to movies, like the difference with a movie and a game is with a movie, you just kind of sit down and watch it, and you go, "Oh, this was clearly an older movie," but you're doing the same thing, just sitting and watching. With a video game, an older game controls and plays very differently to a modern game. And that kind of goes by, like, now I'm a week detached from finishing The Last of Us. It's like, actually, in hindsight, I'm like, I'm so glad they did part 1, because it brings part 1 now up to the same standard as modern gameplay as part 2. So if you're going to watch the HBO series and get in now, you can basically enjoy the whole game and the DLC they left behind, and it won't feel any different from 1 all the way through to the end. Whereas with this one, I'm not sure the Kiwami remakes, like, I guess do that to a degree. But you're right. There's just definitely a jumping on point. I'd love someone in the comments, if you are like a diehard, like a Dragon, Yakuza, whatever, Kiwami fan, just type out chronologically what you think is like the best approach to this.
Like, I think that's a good idea. If you're in the comments and you've played these games, give us a list. What order do you think people should approach these in?
Because we should remember, as PlayStation Plus subscribers, we pretty much get all of this library.
Yeah.
Like, we got it last month, right? All of them just got added last month, bar the new ones they've just announced. So we're eating good. Lots to talk about, lots to enjoy. Part of the showcase, aside from the games, they also did let us know that the PlayStation Stars reward program would also be kicking off later this month. That's going to be actually making an appearance. So they didn't still go too much into detail about what it was, but we know it's going to be a loyalty program. They showed off a few digital collectibles during the showcase, which just basically look like they're going to take characters like Ratchet and Clank and give you kind of like a little statue that's going to sit somewhere in your profile. I don't really know how you're going to view these, which my suspicions with VR2 on the horizon, that we're going to see some kind of like PlayStation Home 2, where you can actually go into like a virtual space and appreciate all of your collectibles, I guess. Again, they stress that there's no weird NFTs, but like if you give me a little statue of, I don't know, Sackboy or something, and I'm like, oh great, I got that for playing a Little Big Planet game. What do I do with it? It just sit there in some kind of email.
It was kind of cool in like Astrobot, where like as you played through the game, you got Astrobots, but you had your little trophy room there. That was pretty cool as like inside the game, but like I don't really care about that in the ecosystem as a whole. I think I prefer if they give you things like instead of like a little trophy, to sit in a digital like showcase room that maybe you can look in, maybe you can invite your friends to look in, but who's really going to do that? Give me a theme, give me an avatar, like stuff that I can display, stuff that I'm going to, when I turn on my PlayStation, oh, he's the theme, he's the God of Ragnarok theme I got for platinuming the game. That stuff would be cool to have.
It's interesting. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. As someone who plays quite a lot of PlayStation, I'm curious to see if there's any like kind of just monetary reward for loyalty. Like if I've got the platinum trophy in the last 3 Sony exclusives, and they can see the timestamp shows that I've done it within like launch week. I hope that goes a longer way to, as opposed to someone who maybe picked it up 5 years later as part of a free subscription, only played 30% of the game, and they kind of reward the fans for genuinely like playing their games. I think they've got the data and the metrics to show who isn't doing it. So reward
they
me
said
with maybe like £5 off the next purchase, or
yeah, they
off
said
a
there's going to be
controller.
like challenges and stuff. So they could even go like, oh, you win the first 10% of people to platinum this PlayStation exclusive game. He's a month free of PlayStation Plus.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that, I think, would be better than just digital trophies that you're probably never going to look at.
Indeed.
Like, as a marketer, I know loyalty programs are only there to extract more money out of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
like
it's 100%. You're going to get like tailored email communications. That's what's going to.
Well, even if it's
That's
not
what
like
the
he's
core
a
of it
free
is.
month of PlayStation Plus, he's 50% off your next PlayStation Plus purchase. So you go, oh, I've got this 50% off coupon. I'll re-up my PlayStation Plus sub. So it keeps you in the ecosystem.
It's that trick of rewards. But we won't have to wait too long. Like I said, it starts rolling out next month. Just like we won't have to wait too long for the final thing, or the wrap up the showcase, which I think it always is going to give it a big hit. They showcase some more of God of War Ragnarok. They showcase a story trailer. We've seen a few more characters introduced, a bit more fights. More importantly, I think the best scene of the whole thing was you saw Kratos fighting Thor, and like you see him throw the axe and it gets lodged in Mjolnir, and then they both recall him. There's thunder lightning. It looks awesome as hell, and I can't wait to play this game. Talk about hype. I thought you were going to say something there, Richie. You did like a big breath in.
I was like, oh yeah, I just saw it in the trailer I was watching. It's like they're doing the opposite of Hogwarts Legacy, where Hogwarts Legacy spends a lot of time showing you not much. They've shown you a lot, but haven't done it very often.
Yeah, I get that. So, question for you there then, Richie. Who would win in a fight, Kratos or Voldemort?
Oh, Kratos.
What's your reason?
What? Voldemort couldn't even kill a baby.
He couldn't even kill a baby. I mean, yeah, that's a fair comment.
Guaranteed there's a YouTube video that addresses this in depth.
Absolutely.
I mean, Voldemort, he could just literally use a death spell, but Kratos is also a god, so would that work on him?
Yeah, there's all mechanics. Like we don't know what kind of runes he's rocking on his axe, which might deflect said death spell away.
Yeah, but does the death spell work on like non-human people? Because
I don't know. There's definitely a lot to be said about not being able to.
We don't even know
if
guns don't work on Voldemort. Like,
yeah, no one's actually tried to just sniper.
Has anyone just use a sniper?
Yeah,
airstrike.
Just the whole thing, yeah, absolutely gone. But showcased a lot from the trailer. We saw quite a lot, and more importantly, off the back of this, obviously we are ramping up marketing. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next month we see so much stuff come out about Ragnarok to really kind of.
I don't even think we need to be honest.
I don't. I just think it's the marketing machine. Like, this is Sony's last big exclusive that we know about from their first party, and I think it was delayed out of 2021 originally, and I think they're going to go hard for like Christmas season as well. If we've seen the stock of the PS5 start to get up there. Like, it's actually, you can go into a shop and just pick one up in a few locations now, and I think this is where they're going to push it big for Christmas. So we'll see more.
It's going to be on buses and stuff everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be billboards. But I think in terms of like gameplay or more trailers, I just don't think that's necessary. I think it's just like take what you've already done and ram it down people's throats.
Yeah, I think for us it's not, but then the general wider public are like, oh, is that new God of War? You know, the ones who don't follow all the media and stuff.
Yeah.
They are. Same with,
That's why billboards and TV spots and stuff, like, to kind of like just show this trailer that we've just seen at the State of Play pretty much everywhere you can for the next like month or two.
Absolutely.
And that'll probably do it.
And there is as well a new controller to go along with it, so they also wrapped up with showcasing a new DualSense 5. That's no doubt going to be kind of like a packing game, I would have thought, or a packing controller with the game, some kind of promo bundle. It's kind of got like ice blue edges on it, and then the two wolves, which I think are it's the wolves that chase the sun and the moon, right, in the Norse mythology. Like, they're not like pet wolves. These are like giant god wolves who basically pull the sun and the moon around, and that's how you get day and night.
They're clearly representing Kratos and what was it, Atreus or Loki, if you prefer.
Whoa, there's people out there who might not even know.
I mean,
didn't he do this last week, Rob? Didn't he spoil something last week as well?
What did you spoil last week, Richie? Was it
Because there was definitely a moment last week where I was like, whoa, calm down, just straight in. Yeah. 2018.
Yeah, it's probably Harry Potter.
Yeah, just Richie ruining dreams all over the place. That's his shtick now.
Yeah,
but either way, that was the State of Play rounded up. Again, some announcements, not as big as I thought they were going to go. I was under the impression that because Ragnarok is the last exclusive we truly know about, I thought they might have focused a bit more on like, well, what comes after? Because for 2023, I'm guessing we've got The Last of Us Factions at some point, the multiplayer thing, and then we have no idea what any other studio is really working on.
I kind of wonder if they don't want to show anything till Ragnarok's out. Like, as an intentional thing, like, keep all the focus on Ragnarok, and once that game's come out, then... Again, we've got Game Awards at the end of the year.
Yeah, true.
Maybe that's why you can start showing some more stuff. What's next?
True. But either way, they're going to focus, we know, in the early next year on PSVR2 as well. We know it's coming out. We actually people had some hands-on previews, and the write-ups have been fantastic for it so far. Some of the biggest media game outlets on the planet have got hands-on with it, and the hardware itself, it's been described as being light, comfortable to wear, capable, good length. Cable, I think it's like 5 meter cable it comes with without weighing you down. Impressive resolution per eye, which already has been described as leagues ahead of PSVR 1, which we knew it was going to be anyway, just by nature of the technology. People saying that the controllers, as expected, are night and day in comparison to the PS Move 1s. Remember, the PS Move 1s with the original VR were from the PlayStation 3 era. So it was almost like a decade-year-old tech that was retrofitted to work with VR.
Very much, we have these lying around, this'll do.
Yeah, we have these Wii controller nunchuck things that have like big glowy balls on the end. How can we incorporate them? And you know what? They do a fair job. Playing Beat Saber with one of those, you feel like you are holding a literal lightsaber. But off the back of this, we've seen people got hands-on with Horizon Call of the Mountain, which apparently doesn't look any worse than the actual Horizon game does on your TV, which I think that needs to be experienced to be believed. Because VR notoriously has that kind of blurry, the graphics aren't as crystal clear effect to it. And I totally get it, because you're looking through a tiny little screen smushed against your eyes in a dark environment, as opposed to enjoying it on a 50-inch OLED display.
You're looking at 2 screens, actually.
Well, yeah, technically, yeah, you're looking at them. But there's loads of stuff that I think the biggest thing is their eye tracking. That's part in, which basically means when you look around, there's 4 individual cameras built in that track your eye movements. So I think it's called something bifocal rendering or something. And what it means is if I look off to the left, it doesn't render the stuff inside my peripheral vision, which means it saves on processing power so they can do better things. But just like in real life, your eye focuses on a specific thing that you're looking at, but everything in and around there is blurry generally. And I think because they've nailed that, that's how they're able to compress more visual fidelity into the parts that you're looking at. And apparently that's a game changer, along with the the Sense controllers, because they are essentially all the amazing tech in the DualSense, but getting rid of the ones and giving it this way. Resident Evil Village was shown off, Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, and Galaxy's Edge Star Wars Enhanced Edition was shown off. And yeah, people getting generally quite excited by this. And then the announcement came that PSVR games are not backwards compatible to PSVR 2. Or forwards compatible, I guess. And then the rumours came out that loads of the devs are working on porting the original PSVR games over to PSVR 2. So it's a bit of an odd scenario. In my mind, I get it, because the Sense controllers are totally different to the ones. So if you've designed a game around a glowy one stick, you can't just, it's not like a controller. You can't just port it from a DualShock over to a DualSense and hope some of the stuff, like just remap the buttons. This is a totally different peripheral.
They use that, but they could also made the DualSense compatible with the ones as well.
In what regard?
Like, have backwards compatibility on the controllers. Like, you don't necessarily have to, because of the new generation of hardware. Like, why you could, I can't see a solid reason why, if it is the controllers of why older titles can't be ported forward easily, you could have just made the hardware compatible with the older controllers.
Oh, so you mean titles. The option to use a Move controller?
Yeah, just like
the Move controllers for me are just impossible to find. Like, I struggled to actually buy new Move controllers. I got one off Facebook Marketplace. There was some some teenager was just selling them, and I think they don't think they understood the purpose or the value, because they got it with some kind of like dance game back in 2015.
Yeah.
And then he's like a 30-year-old bloke on Facebook going, "Could I pick up?" I think I got one of them, like 2 of them for like 20 odd quid. But if you go on like the proper sites, it's like 80 quid a pack. So I thought I was like a bargain in with these ones.
I think I'm in 2 minds about it, because like, yeah, I get like that tech has to move on, and like there's probably a hell of a lot of practical considerations that we don't even are aware of when it comes to like developing. But like, it just kind of cuts the legs out from the they're struggling
waste as well.
VR kind of PS infrastructure, I think, at a time where it doesn't really need that kind of stab at it, really. So
yeah, it's starting from scratch again almost, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously there's going to be like lots of different like parts which the people who are loyal to the PlayStation VR network have to buy again. And I don't know. That's the thing.
We don't know if they're going to do any kind of like free port. Like if you own the game already, you might get the next version for free or like a heavy discount, which we're seeing with some cross-gen games that come out now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sony have kind of been reluctant at that. Microsoft kind of forced their hands into stuff like that. That's the thing for me is like I don't have PSVR, but over the years, every time a PSVR game has come to PlayStation Plus, I've went claim. So I have a library of VR games there. So, but now basically they said on a VR2 I can't use them games. So they're basically now redundant, and if they do port forward, then we'll have to buy the games again, which is how I would expect this to play out, unless there's a lot. This seems to be the developers themselves making the decision to move their games forward rather than Sony getting the developers to do it. So the pressure may end up on Sony to kind of offer these as like free generational upgrades.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's obviously always a big thing. I think we said pre-show, Richie, about PSVR that like I'm more interested in, and after all the stuff I've read and watched this week about the features the new one comes with, my interest has actually been piqued more than it has been to date. However, there is still that looming question of the price, and I think realistically, as we head into next year, I don't think myself and probably a lot of people out there, general consumers, I can't validate spending £300 to £400 on a VR headset in 2023 when I've just got so much adult shit to worry about on top of the price of buying the console, which has just gone up, remember, another 20 quid. And it's like, ugh, like gaming's an expensive hobby anyway. Owning a PS5, playing games is an expensive hobby. To then buy another £400 peripheral on top of it and not have a library of games already that pre-exist. Like, it wouldn't be as bad if you, like Richie said, if you had 20, 30 claimed games already to like check in and delve into and play around with. But to buy it and then maybe have like the one packing game and whatever the free launch game is, you're like, oh great, I've got 2 titles. After the first month of messing around with them, it's like, right, they've got nothing now.
VR gaming could be incredible, but I do think the biggest barrier to entry of VR is definitely the price.
Absolutely.
I've always wanted a PSVR, but I've never been able to justify the cost based on what games it would give me access to.
Yeah,
and I think now you have two forces, right, that delay you. It's like, A, I can't really afford it, I'll justify it next year compared to other things, and B, well, I might as well wait for the ecosystem to develop a bit, get some more games in the library. Like,
that's
I can't see many people.
This hardware seems like a massive step forward. The eye tracking, I think, is going to be amazing. You can see yourself, say you're playing a first-person shooter, glance down at the bottom right corner, and suddenly the UI on that part of the screen pops up, so you can see like how much ammo and you've got and stuff. Like, so it's like I could see them kind of. You look in the top right corner, the map pops up.
Yeah,
little things like that you could only do in VR could be absolutely incredible. So I think that maybe it might be just a case of Sony have had to go, you know what, we're going to make this decision. Kind of VR1 was a good first step, but we're going to end that ecosystem, start with a new ecosystem from VR2. It's now going to be the foundations going forward, because we have to do it to make this exactly how we want it to for that long term like build. So I hope it goes well. I am expecting the price to be the killer though.
Yeah, it's an interesting catch-22 kind of thing. It's similar to what we talk about with Stadia, where it doesn't have the user base. I mean, VR is obviously well ahead of Google Stadia in terms of player base, but it doesn't have the, like Rob said, doesn't have the library, but then you need people to get in. Because of the price, people don't get in because they want to hold off until the game's in the library there, but we don't get that if there's not the player base to merit the cost to develop a game for it. And I think Sony do great stuff, obviously Valve and Oculus and stuff. They're doing their stuff to get into it, but it's just not as widespread yet. I don't think VR's going anywhere, and I hope it's not, but coming out in the spring next year as well, like who's going to, like, it's not Christmas, it's like, it's an odd time to launch hardware, right? For like, especially when it's not a console.
Yeah, it's still expensive enthusiast gear. It's not this at the moment, especially with like Europe being on the edge of recession.
I will be in recession by spring. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's a very awkward time to release hardware. I think the whole like trying to get out for Christmas, they've probably done the calculus and went, you know what, it doesn't really matter. We see this more of a long burn. So
if you can't even get a PS5 at this Christmas, then you might be stuck.
They're probably
already.
looking at it and going, do we really care for this hardware and have that initial peak in sales in the run up to Christmas, or we're happy to just get it out there, let it slowly trickle away over the course of the year, and probably see that peak next year. At the Christmas 2023.
Build that foundation. Yeah, possibly.
When there's more PS5s in the things. Like I think again, if you're looking at this to extend the entire length of the PS5 generation, potentially even the PS6.
Yeah.
That initial like few months worth of sales peaks, does that matter?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. It's very interesting to see. Part of me still wishes that PlayStation would commit to another handheld and stop messing around with VR and just give us another Vita. But it's interesting that they're so heavily invested in. Xbox just seem to show no interest in VR whatsoever. Like, it's actually very surprising Microsoft don't have a foot in the door at all. But you've got like Facebook,
yeah, true. Not even on the PC
Valve
size,
and like, even HTC to an extent.
They're probably still getting burned off the Windows Phone. That's it. They get flashbacks to the Windows Phone.
I mean, potentially. Because there was like Windows, whatever they're like.
Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are the three that haven't really made any big strides into VR yet.
VR Daydream, Google Daydream, Richie. Do you not remember?
Yeah, I mean, they've dipped the toe in the water, but they've not like they're not trying to emerge as a market leader.
I played Fantastic Beasts, Harry Potter related, on Daydream VR, and you got to wave a wand with your little remote control and feed animals inside of a suitcase. That's what I remember. It was actually fun, to be fair. But with most VR stuff, once you're in the headset, you kind of cut off from the rest of the world. I will point out VR2. There's a button you can press on the head display, and it showcases what the camera on the outside can see in black and white. So if you've got a friend who's been a dickhead in the room to you, or you just want to quickly check your phone, or you've dropped one of the controls and you can't find out where it's at, you tap a little button and you can see.
A bit of spatial awareness, and you want to see where I'm in the room, like what's around me. Like,
I think that's great because again, taking it off, you kind of lose everything. But I think
that was
cool.
one of them features when I don't know which VR headset at first. But once it was in, it has to be in everything now.
Yeah, like a standard practice. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But moving away from VR2, we'll no doubt find out more as we head into the new year and we get hopefully a big PlayStation showcase, which is going to tell us about all the big games, all the VR news, the price points and everything, launch date, etc. And we'll cover it on this very show. But until we get to that point, let's break down a couple of more announcements from the week. Richie, you'll be absolutely thrilled to hear we got an announcement for Octopath Traveller 2, the sequel. Octopath Traveller 2, quite surprisingly, is coming to PlayStation 5 and PS4, and the reason it's surprising is because the first one never came out on any PlayStation platform. No. It was on Switch, PC, and Google Stadia, which, again, it's a weird one that everyone forgets.
Xbox as well.
Oh, did it go to Xbox eventually?
It was initially a Nintendo exclusive, then it came out, I think it came to Stadia same time as Xbox and PC.
Right.
So now Octopath Traveller 2 is Switch and PS5, PS4.
It's such an odd... Square Enix do some weird things.
Yeah, I wonder, are they going to bring... I hope they bring Octopath 1 now to PlayStation, because that'd be a brilliant PlayStation Plus game on the run-up to Octopath 2.
It seems odd to bring it out.
It's not a continuation of the same story. This is a second game, like kind of similar to Final Fantasy, where every new numbered title is a complete new world, complete set of characters.
I'm still in shock they went with the word Octopath when it was like the working title. But then again, we got Project Triangle Strategy as well.
It works. It kind of works. It's like you got 8 characters, 8 distinct stories.
It's so Square Enix.
I hope with them too, though, like they kind of have a bit more interplay between the narratives. They kind of have it so because with 1, every character has its own like story arc, but they don't really interact much. Like, I'd want each story arc to be standalone, but like once you've played through them all, you kind of see like an overarching narrative that binds them all together a bit more.
Yeah. But not too long again, February 2023, guys. So the list
probably
for
a Switch.
Next year.
This is probably going to be a Switch pickup for me actually, rather than PlayStation.
Yeah, the art style is absolutely gorgeous as well. But nice to see a sequel to it. You did completely finish the first one, right, Richie?
I've got over 100 hours in it.
Yeah. I thought you did. I was just checking. But looking forward to seeing how that one does as well. We also had some other announcements or other news, I guess, that came out. Bit more on the negative side, which we'll talk about. Babylon's Fall. You may have heard of, but you probably never played. This is from Square Enix as well, and this is from developer Platinum Games. Babylon's Fall launched less than a year ago, and it was... I don't even know what it was aiming to be, really. It's a frenetic dungeon crawler sporting a European oil painting art style. Had a few bright spots, but at the end of the day, no one played it. I think at one point in Steam, it had like 2 concurrent users.
Yeah.
Which for a AAA game relying on it was supposed to be a live action, always online RPG. And for some reason, it just absolutely failed. And Square Enix announced this week that they're going to be shutting it down within the first year. And this is a game, by the way, that cost people $60 to buy outright. It wasn't like a free to play and then get in on the door. It just seems to have took everything that they were hoping would work, and none of it worked. I think they had like a PS5 release earlier this year as well, or a PS4 release, like a backwards compatibility, to try and get a bigger user base in. And yeah, February 27th, 2023 at 11 p.m, the services will be shut down.
I wonder if this is why Square Enix are pulling out the Western market a bit. Just like stuff like this, this just did not land at all.
Yeah,
they probably took a loss, financially.
The news article for the PS5 release is the PS5's new worst game is here. There's no coming back from that, right?
Yeah, it was one of them where it was obviously touted in a lot of the lead up to the next gen coming out and saying oh, here it is, and it was like basically generic game 101. You've took...
I've just seen the Steam page, recent reviews, very negative.
It just does not good. The tweet they put out, basically, just to clarify, it said, no, there are no plans to reduce the scale of development on Babylon's Fall. And then immediately after, it almost feels like they went, we'll continue to provide new content for the game and make improvements based on player feedback. We'd like to thank you all for enjoying the world of Babylon's Fall. We look forward to the future. And then
the 2 guys who were playing it, thank you for playing it.
And then Mia, not long later, it just basically says, with deep regret, we're terminating the game service on February 20th. Less than a year. This reminds me a bit of Anthem as well from EA, but obviously on a much quicker time scale, how all these developers and publishers put all their eggs in this basket of this is going to be the next big thing. And then because it's always online and it requires an audience to keep it alive, it's not like a single player game. If no one plays it, no one really knows because it's not connected. But like I said, it's damning when it's one player, 2 people concurrently on Steam of all things as well.
A game like that where you're expecting people to this game almost becomes your hobby rather than gaming in general being your hobby. You've got to be better than the other stuff that's already got established audiences, because otherwise people will come across, they'll try and go, I preferred this other thing, I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Richie, because the most positive review I've read about it is that it gets really good after 15 hours.
After 15?
After 15, 1-5. Who's going to play a game at shit for 15 hours and then in the hopes it becomes something?
That's like someone's going to you, this TV show, you have to give it the first 2 series before it starts getting good. And it's but it's 24 episodes a season, so I have to wait for 50 shit episodes before it starts getting remotely interesting. No, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't have the time for that.
It's a tough one. It did bad at launch. Developers were quick to reassure existing players that nothing about the game's icy reception and dwindling player count would scupper their future plans for the live service. And from their quote, no, there are no plans to reduce the scale of development on Babylon's Fall. Just a couple of months later, the message changed to the game's development would now reevaluate future content plans, which again, if that's the message that's coming out, are you going to want to keep playing it? It's almost don't, the ship has a few holes in it, but don't jump yet. We're going to fix the holes. And then a few hours later going, get the life rafts ready.
I think if you're playing an online game and that regularly, and you'll be very aware of how little few other people are playing, because things like matchmaking and stuff would just be an absolute nightmare. So you've probably seen the writings on the wall on this kind of thing. So
yeah, it's an interesting
for
pill.
Me, Pride would want me to see out the year. I'm not cancelling the game in this first year. We'll get through the year, then we'll cancel it next year.
Yeah, it's an interesting pill for Square Enix to swallow after, obviously, Outriders did really well, but then fell off for everyone because it was more single-player focused. Then you've got Marvel's Avengers, which I enjoyed it, but I don't think it's garnered the constant fan base that's playing it continuously like they want. I think it's an in and out kind of experience. And then this as well, it's like, and then Square Enix selling Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and everything out to Embracer. It does make you wonder, like, outside of kind of Final Fantasy and a couple of other things, like Square Enix there's definitely shake-ups happening, and I'm still expecting Sony to possibly swoop in and buy them at some point, just to kind of salvage what's left. Yeah. But
it'd be I think because of the links with Nintendo as well, it might be very difficult for Sony to buy Square Enix.
Hey, money's money.
It is, but I think if soon Sony start talking about buying Square Enix, Nintendo going to go, what about us? Like, because Nintendo have got a couple of like exclusive franchises made by Square as well, so it's like it's not
exclusively on PlayStation.
Yeah, I don't think it's a straightforward. And it depends what the sort of contracts are like. But.
True, but then again, Microsoft is spending how much?
50-50. Sony and Nintendo just go 50-50 in.
Do what they can do.
We'll do it together.
Speaking of going 50-50 in, next star of the week, EA Originals, I should specifically say, EA Originals publishing partner are partnering with the Dynasty Warriors studio for a new Monster Hunter-like game. EA has announced that its EA Originals label has entered into a partnership with Koei Tecmo and Dynasty Warriors studio Omega Force for a new hunting game, similar to Monster Hunter, not the kind of deer hunting game. We don't know a ton of details about it yet, except for EA have said that it will be a AAA experience and based in a fantasy feudal Japan setting. We're expected to get more details about it later this month, which could suggest it's going to show up at Tokyo Game Show, which I don't think it did actually, because that's happened now, or it's currently happening. EA team fully embrace our creative independence, but have become an invaluable partner offering both development and publishing support, said Koei Tecmo. Adding the global resources of EA with our own will help us introduce a new kind of hunting game to a global audience of players and expand our reach into global markets. I'm really looking forward to the day that gamers from around the world can play this new game. So this is kind of a first. I don't recall a time EA have ever reached outside of their own studios to make a game, especially with it under the EA Originals publishing label, which is usually where we got games like A Way Out, Unraveled, Lost in Random more recently. So you kind of smaller indie titles. And Koei Tecmo are not by any small means an indie company. They've got like hundreds and hundreds of employees. So something different here for both parties, I think. And I enjoyed the Dynasty Warriors games. I know Rob does as well. Oh, yeah, I haven't dabbled in Monster Hunter, but if it's got kind of EA's AAA levels of polish, could be an interesting one, this.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the trouble with Koei, hasn't it? It's always been like, it's never been up to like a high standard in terms of like the AAA polish.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, so I'm definitely interested to see, once they have the resources behind them, what they can produce. Because like, as much as I love the Dynasty Warriors franchise, it is basically the exact same game.
Undoubtedly.
Every couple of years,
same,
right?
same story. They somehow pull a new extra few hundred characters from history books.
If you could play a lot of them, you can start seeing where they've reused assets.
I
get that with Falcom.
100%, yeah.
I get that with Falcom at the moment. I'm playing through Trails of Cold Steel, and there's times I go, they're the sound effects from East. Like, just straight up.
Move across. Yeah, and no surprise. Like, I give myself a good few years between each Dynasty Warriors game now, just to see if I could get a more graphical boost out of them. And they are what they are. They're a specific genre and type of game, which they don't need to really change much. But yeah, Monster Hunter set in feudal Japan. So I do feel like maybe after even just covering this week's news, we're probably going to be a bit oversaturated on Japanese history at some point. Maybe in the next 5 years' time, we'll look back and be like, geez, take us back to the world of cyberpunk and space horror.
Yeah.
Earlier in the summer, it was all like kind of gritty sci-fi, like horror stuff. And before that, we had cyberpunk. Next is going to be feudal Japan.
It will be.
It just seems like everything's coming out once.
It will. But interesting. Again, partnership we've never really seen before. So certain things on that one. And then rounding out the show this week, we've got the news that The Sims 4, which of course is like a 9-year-old game at this point, will be going free to play. The base game will be going free to play on all platforms beginning October 18th. So you can still buy all the extras and add-ons and special fancy packs with all the boosters in and stuff. But essentially, Sims 4, the base game, will be free across all platforms, including Origin, PS5, PS4, Xbox and stuff, from October. Not really much more to add on that, but I kind of guess it's a long time coming, right? gents. Like, I think Richie, we've theorized many times that The Sims kind of having a number on it, it's not really required because it's the base game of The Sims is perfect fodder for monetizing and adding on. We did it when we were kids. Like, you went out and paid £20 for the DLC. It was essentially the first monetized game where you went out and actively bought like a dating pack add-on, a vacation pack add-on, a pets add-on, and you went and physically bought a 20 quid booster that you needed the base game as well. That's no different than playing Fortnite now and paying £20 for a season pass or battle pass to get you skins and add-ons. It's the same concept, and they've been doing it for years. But yeah, I think it's actually, if anything, it's a bit late, this going free to play.
Yeah,
it's an old game, right?
If I was managing The Sims, I'd go, what we're going to do is, near the start of every console generation, we're going to bring out the new game, but we're going to support for the entire length of the generation with continuous add-ons and map packs and stuff. So every new generation, you do get that significant graphical and like UI upgrades and all the sort of stuff, because things do start feeling old and stale. So having a continuous platform, you'd have to keep upgrading the game. Where sometimes it is nice to have a clear breakpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, like going free to play, I think it's a fantastic move. Like,
I'm mostly happy that we covered this story because when I first saw the news, I didn't pay attention to it too much in terms of like details, and I thought the entire like content packs or everything. I was gonna be furious because I've spent like at least £200 on Sims 4 content packs over the years.
See,
I was livid. Like I was livid that everybody else had it.
Yeah, that's an argument why the base game should be free to play, because then people like you are more inclined to go, you know what, I've played 10 hours of this, I'm really enjoying it, I'm going to buy a map pack.
Yeah, it's generally built for
and
that.
you end up spending more money than you would have done if you just bought the game.
But naturally, I read like the first line of the thing, I was like,
yeah.
no,
Are you
casual Sims fans.
Yeah, all those.
To be fair, it's so late in the lifespan of that game. I think you can probably give it a pass. Like if you've bought all the map packs already, it's like, oh no.
Yeah, but it is a unique, and I think the Sims kind of before Fortnite aesthetic was a thing. It's kind of had its own art style since like 2000, like when the first game came out. It doesn't look very different. Obviously, it's better now than it has been, but. I think it's almost got that timeless art style where even though the game's 8-year-old, I don't look at any of the trailers for it and go like, oh, that looks dead, because it just looks like The Sims. And
yeah, like Sims people are very unique in their kind of. What's that? There's an actress who looks there's a Rosamund Pike who looks exactly like a Sim. There's
what a compliment.
Yeah. It's like Sims. It's like really weird art style, which like it just holds up forever, basically.
It does, and no doubt, I think shifting it to free to play just means they can add on these content packs constantly and just see if people buy them. Like, we know there'll be like Halloween content, Christmas content, and then there's all like this. I think they added like a cottage and pets add on with like dogs you've never seen in the game. Like, we've never had corgis in the game, but if you like corgis, here's a £5 add-on pack just to have a corgi as your pet. And I get what they're doing, it's good, and I sometimes forget EA actually own The Sims, because it just quietly just does its thing in the background and probably makes them millions and millions of dollars, and it's just what it is.
It's probably one of them on like their balance sheet where it's just a steady income every single month.
Absolutely.
I do say that the community's been crying out for Sims 5. It's been like a meme almost at this point that it hasn't been announced or anything.
Well, that's kind of why I'm feeling like if I was EA, and I'll be looking like near the start of the console generation, that's when I bring out a new Sims game and just support it for the generation.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. It can't be that far off. But again, I do think, similar to some other games we've theorized in the past, I think just having it as like a platform rather than... Because again, graphic fidelity, it's never going to be realistic art style. So get out your base platform now, retitle it like The Sims, just The Sims, reboot it as just that, and then that is your platform for the next 20, 30 years going forward, and just get as much added on as possible. Because it's one of those casual games where like my wife, my sister, like every 2 years get Sims. That itch to go. I enjoy The Sims. I still do the same thing where I build the house, I build a family, and then when real life kicks in, I go, hey, this is boring, I don't want to do the job and shit. I just want to do the cheats and build everything.
I usually do like a crappy job, like something like I'll become an author, because then I don't have to leave the house. I can just work from home.
I mean, yeah, why not?
But then because like if you do a job like that, you're kind of self-employed, so you can work it entirely to your own schedule.
Yeah, you can take the trash out.
You can go, I don't want to do it. I've got enough money in the bank. I'm not gonna write a book this week.
Yeah, why not? But yeah, I do enjoy The Sims, and yeah, it's a very like casual game. But yeah, I own it on, I think, Origin store maybe, and I get a like text from my sister like once every 2 years saying, Chris, what's your login origin again? Because I want to download it and play it for a day and then give up on it again. And same with the wife. So it's again very casual, but it's got an audience and it does well. But that is all we've got time for on this week's episode of Talking the PS. Loads of new game announcements, loads of PSVR2 news, and of course we'll keep covering it all as it rolls out across the coming months and the end of the year into 2023, right here on Talking the PS, part of Helix Cloud Games. Gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for this week's show. Don't forget, folks, if you are a Helix Hero, if you support the channel, if you support us three, that little bit extra, you can join and become a member, where you'll get this show early, you'll get CloudQuest early, you'll get stickered badges and exclusive perks along the way. And you get to support us as well, of course. That's the main thing. Don't forget to tune in on the 1st of October, Saturday, for our full day of celebrations, Helix Cloud celebrations, for our 3rd anniversary. Games, giveaways, beers, pizza, all of that fun right here on youtube.com. That's been it for this week's show, though. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
Remember, folks, play whatever makes you the happiest. We'll see you on the next one. Happy gaming. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.